Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakthrough Moment podcast, where we interview successful entrepreneurs and investors and ask them what is their biggest breakthrough moment in their career? The moment that changed it all, took them into another level of success or insight or impact. And as they share that moment with us at home can have breakthroughs as well. My name is Zach Deane with special guest Sudhanshu. Thanks for tuning in. Where are you tuning in from today?
I'm coming from Bangalore, so I'm tuning in from Bangalore, India.
All right. How's Bangalore today?
It's very beautiful. While the rest of India is quite hot, in fact, in most part of the northern hemisphere, it's quite hot. I'm sitting in pleasant weather. It's kind of a little cloudy outside. The weather is nice, so yeah, can't complain.
Beautiful. Amazing. I've been to India twice. I went when I was 2 years old, and
Uh,
then I went when I was like 27
okay.
for a wedding. Most amazing wedding experience in Rajasthan. Absolutely beautiful. I love
It
India.
is. It is.
So let's dive into it. I'm going to do a quick intro for you, and then we'll dive into your breakthrough moment. So everybody at home, 1.4 billion people, right? 5,000 years of culture, and not one brand the world instantly associates with India. Sudhanshu calls that a branding crisis. He's a TEDx speaker, co-founder of two startups out of Bangalore, and has made it his mission to fix the one thing holding Indian founders back from going global. Not the product, it's the narrative. Because in a world where AI has made every product the same, he believes brand is the only equalizer left for the world, for people to stand out. It's all around branding. So if you stick around to the end, he will reveal the one thing required to build a successful brand in 2026. Sudhanshu, welcome to the Breakthrough Moment podcast. What has been your biggest breakthrough moment thus far?
Thank you, Zach. First of all, for the wonderful introduction. Last year I was, I am a big traveler. I like to travel as much as I can and as much as my time permits. And last year, I did quite an extensive Europe tour with my daughter. And, you know, that is where that realization, while it was there subconscious, but it became very apparent that in terms of what consumers buy, what consumers trust, things that you see everywhere, you know, as soon as you step out of India, that things that connect you back with your country, those brands aren't there. So if you travel to through South America, you travel through Africa, you travel through Europe or Australia, you won't have one brand that people use that is Indian that has become integral to our lives, to their lives. If you look at companies, if you look at products, if you look at brands, they become part of your life. Whether it is the car that you drive, whether it is a Toyota or a Tesla, or the drinks that you drink, whether it is a Coke or the the TVs, the phones that you use, everything, the clothes that you wear, all of them are brands. But if you think of it, despite being a 1.4 billion country, we are the biggest human resource capital of the world. We have overtaken China in that way. But we haven't, over the last 7,500 years, we haven't created one brand that we can very proudly say it is Indian and the world recognizes it at Indian and it wants it. So that was the realization when I was traveling across the world with my daughter, and it were her questions that she would look at. Hey, the what Indian things can you find on the street? And we couldn't. And that is where I came back, and yeah, things started from there. So that was the breakthrough moment, I would say.
It's so amazing how travel and experiencing different parts of the world allows us to see life in a different way. And I feel like
Yeah,
the more that I travel, the more that I see and understand life. And it kind of gives me more I guess just insight into
hmm
one, how amazing this world is. I'm so grateful to be alive. There's so many things to experience. And two, the magnitude of how big the earth is, but also how many people there are living
yeah,
completely unique experiences all around the world. So it
absolutely.
creates a lot of humility and I guess you know,
Yeah,
um, yeah, just awareness that there's the world outside of ourselves. I remember when I
Hmm.
first met you a couple of weeks ago, and we spoke about your parents and I think your parents were educators, or your mum was a
Yes,
teacher.
yes, yeah, yeah.
What part does education play, or what part has education played in your entrepreneurial journey? How important has it been in your journey thus far? Real quick, before we continue, a brief message from today's sponsor. If you're an entrepreneur wanting to grow your personal brand, authority, and business through podcasting, then check out Find a Podcast. As you know, the biggest entrepreneurs in the world, they book these massive podcast tours before a big product launch or an event or book, because podcasts build trust faster than anything else online today. So it's findapodcast.io. It helps you connect with a specific podcast in your niche. It writes the pitch, it follows up in this easy CRM. It truly does save time. So you just show up, do the podcast, and your business grows. If you're curious to learn more, book in a demo at findapodcast.io. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Thanks for bringing this up. And I would say that education has been the single biggest differentiator in my life. And I come from a very small place in India. There's a city called Bihar. It's not economically that well doing. I come from a very small city called Bhagalpur. Growing up, the only difference that I saw with respect to uh, my cousins, my know, friends, was how my parents invested in my education. Both of my parents are educators, and I'm quite fortunate in that regard, because coming from a place which was where now when we were growing up, there were a lot of crimes. Uh, we were, the economic progress hadn't touched that part of the world. In fact, when I look back now, in the when we were growing up, we in the same, I wouldn't say in the large, in the not in the same household, but in the larger family, we were around 10, 15, 12 to 15, cousins. My parents invested in my education, my brother's education, my sister's education. That is why we are where we are today. I have lost some of my cousins while we were growing up, and all of that can be attributed to them not having a good education, right? I know somebody did drugs, went into the criminal side of things, got involved in crimes, um, and things caught up with them. They're no longer in the world today. So it is not just what I am today, but my entire existence is, I can attribute it to education. You know, uh, if I'm talking to you today, had my parents not taken that bet of putting us in schools, good education, possibly I wouldn't have been here today. So, uh, if you ask me, education is at the heart of how I think. You know, and the other part of that is coming from where I am. Possibly, education is the only advantage that I have over others. Uh, the more effort that I can put, the more skills that I can acquire, the more what do you say, frameworks I can apply at work. That's the only advantage that I have against anybody else out there.
I've always said this is that you can take everything away from someone, but you can't take away their education, right? It goes with you
Absolutely.
everywhere you go. And so,
Yeah.
what would be your advice for, say, I don't know, anyone out there that's maybe wanting to, I guess, upskill or improve their education, or like what should they be educating themselves on? You know, now we have access to
Yeah.
information through AI, through YouTube, through different news sources all around the world. If someone ends out there who's like self-starting, but maybe they don't
Yeah.
have the support from their parents around education, how can they start to, I guess, grow their mind and grow their education independently of their family, in your
I,
opinion?
I think this question is very relevant now, given that education is, people say that AI, why educate yourself when everything is accessible at the prompt away. But that is not the question. The question essentially is, even if AI has everything, it can make everything accessible. At the end of the day, you have to have control of things around you, surrounding you, right? So the skills or the knowledge that is more important are more core human skills. The ability to think possibly. We have LLMs who can think for you, but I think that does not serve the purpose. Uh, if you have to develop one skill, if I have to say, it has to be, how do you critically analyze things? How do you know take the world around us is a, what do you say? What do you say? It's a playground, right? Say for example, if you are a kid, you would like to know, hey, why the traffic light is red, yellow, green. Why is it so? Say, for example, why there is a sunrise, stuff like that. Things around us, there is science, there is thinking everywhere. As an entrepreneur, you need to take that thinking even further, right? Say, for example, you need to really understand basics of human behavior. If you are an entrepreneur or a professional, at the end of it, you need to understand basics of human behavior, how people engage, how people interact, what people want, while it is, what are some explicit needs that they have, some implicit needs that they have. So unless and until uh, you have that ability to understand human behavior, if you have that ability to think from what Elon Musk calls a first principles thinking, where you think without any bars whatsoever. What is the ground of weight of thinking about solving problems? If you ask me, uh, people say that, hey, should I learn AI? I don't know. Maybe AI is out there, and if you even if you learn AI today, robotics today, IoT today, that skill, I don't know if it will survive 5 years down the line. But if you develop those core human skills that are mostly survival skills, how do you think? How do you action? How do you understand people? Those are skills that will stay with you. And if you have that, that will go a long way, if you ask me, Zach.
100%. So important. I think that's key in today's world. I use a lot of AI just to like I like it when I go through AI, I put in the prompts or I put in things I want to learn about, and I listen, have it talk to me back. It does help, but it's obviously not the end all or be all in terms of
Yeah.
knowledge. I think, podcasts are a great way to learn these days. Back
Hmm.
when I was growing up, we had encyclopedias, big, thick books on, lots of history and sources. Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword because you can learn so much so fast with
Yeah.
AI, but is it going to be
Yeah. Yeah.
accurate? Is it going to be hallucinations or imaginations with how it all just spits
Yeah. And
cognitive
you
bias
need
back
that
to us?
ability. So whether it is hallucinating, whether there is a bias, if you take the LLM's answer at face value, you'll end up losing. You'll be on the losing side. So you have to have that critical thinking ability to say, hey, is this right? While I have given the prompt and AI has given me the answer, but is it right? Is it the good for me or not? And I think that ability to question, that ability to counter question, that is very, very important. How basically is, do you ask questions for everything? How inquisitive are you? How critically things you analyze? Those skills, Zach, are going to be very, very important in the future.
I was chatting about this actually with some of my previous guests, and I get to meet so many amazing entrepreneurs, and I'm figuring
Hmm.
out the similarities in how they think, and a lot of the time, there's a common kind of thread in all the interviews. And I think one of the
Yeah,
key ones that you're mentioning is education, right? The
yeah,
people that are doing business today or successful, they've read more books, or they've had more mentors, or they've asked better questions for longer. They're consistently growing. I totally see
yeah,
that. One of the traits that I've also learned, and it was from a personal development event I did many years ago with founders, and the lady was studying founders, and she met hundreds of these founders, and she said the two key traits that determined someone's success inside the startup world was one, grit, perseverance, pushing through, doing the uncomfortable, always making it happen, like having the energy for that. And then secondly was curiosity, the ability to ask the questions, to problem solve, to look outside the box and see it from different perspectives for problem solving, right? Which is what you were saying
Yeah,
there too. What have you
yeah.
noticed that has been some key traits amongst, I guess, your network or amongst the entrepreneurs that you've met, the people that are successful? What would you say are some of the key similarities?
Uh, I think you have answered some elements of it, but I'll try to go deeper into it. Um, India is at a very unique moment where a lot of people feel that their way of getting ahead in life is through entrepreneurship. So I meet students who are in their late teens to people who are in their 50s. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And that is, I think, it is almost unprecedented in the history. I haven't seen such a huge, what do you say, interest and aspiration of being entrepreneurial in India, because earlier there were not enough avenues. Today there are avenues. There are people building from India, building to the world. People have built great companies. There was recently, you know, a comment made by a big investor saying that as soon as a US company acquires an Indian CEO, I buy the stocks, because that is the kind of faith that Indian entrepreneurs, professionals have earned over years through their grit and hard work, the word that you used, right? However, being an entrepreneur is very, very challenging, and it is not glamorous as it sounds. And unless and until you are prepared to put in the hard work, keep your ego aside, get to the base. As an entrepreneur, you have to be the answer for everything inside your organization, right? From why, say, possibly why there is no electricity, or why it is so hot outside. You don't have a aircon inside your system. To people getting salaries. So I have seen entrepreneurs. You I have seen a lot of people who get charmed or enchanted by the idea of entrepreneurship. They try it for 6 to 12 months, and they say that, hey, this is not my cup of tea. I was better in a more what do you say, non-ambiguous environment. But the biggest trait that I find in successful entrepreneurs are two, apart from the grit that you already said, is this ability to work in a highly ambiguous environment. You really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You It could be in the middle of a project where you are delivering, the delivery is next week, and your biggest resource, somebody just takes it out. I'll just give you an example. uh, there is an airline which has recently started in India, and I can call it it's a bigger startup, right? uh, they got a lot of planes, everything was there. Their rival just bought out all their pilots right before they could go out, right? So as an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared to handle things that you have never expected. You have to that is the first part of being ready with a lot of moving pieces, being ready with a lot of ambiguity. That's the first. The other part of that, which is people, around people. The best of the entrepreneurs, I feel, have a lot of trust in people. Okay, uh, on the other side, some of the most unsuccessful entrepreneurs are the people who try to control everything, because all of us are kind of limited. We all have 24 hours. We can't put beyond that. So your ability to identify people, your ability to trust people, your ability to groom people sets it apart. So if you see, that is why when you look at a successful startup, one successful startup becomes a home ground for multiple entrepreneurs, right? We talk about PayPal Mafia, because once that PayPal became successful, there were 10, 15 different entrepreneurs coming from it. because they were people with abilities. It is your ability to spot them, groom them, trust them. That's the only way a startup works. If you as an entrepreneur feel that I can control all the moving pieces and I can run a very tight ship, I think that is one short way of killing your startup.
That's
So
really
did I
interesting.
answer your question?
100%. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I'm glad you said that. It's really the key thing to business is trust. No one's going to do business with you unless they trust you, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
or the company, they trust the company. Oh, it's really
And
important to think
also,
about
why
that.
then the other part of that is around people again is that when you start off, all you have is a vision. You even don't have money to pay to people. I have heard, if you have to work with me and I'm the entrepreneur, the only leverage that I have is to talk to you and have you believe in the vision that I have. That is all that is there on the table, right? For that, you need to have really passionate, really people whose values are aligned to you. Because in 90% of the cases, entrepreneurs in the beginning pay far less than a market could pay. What you say to them, hey, I'll give you ESOPs, I'll give you this, let's grow together so that tomorrow both of us grow big. But when you're starting off, you don't have resources, you don't have money, and the only people who will trust you are people who are equally passionate, people in some way they're equally crazy like you, and that is why your ability to spot people like that is going to be a core differentiator.
Super cool. Great advice. Before we get into the branding, we're going to get into that
Hmm.
next. But you mentioned at the beginning with the introduction, we've got so many, India being the number one population in the world and, such an old history. But you mentioned that there's, no real association to like
Yeah.
a brand.
Mm.
When did you realize this? And what is it that brands, I guess, are doing wrong that's not allowing this to kind of be a reality?
I would put it in three. I wouldn't say the brands are doing wrong, but I would say for example, if I had to problem solve why there are no big Indian brands, I would put it in three the buckets. The first is uh, that India itself is a huge consumer market. Okay, so we have 1.4 billion people, and apart from China, there is no other country like that. And it is not one homogeneous population like China. India is very heterogeneous in terms of geographies, people, tastes. It's like an entire European Union, but 5 times the size, right? So India itself is a huge internal market. So a lot of companies first think, hey, can I conquer India? And conquering India itself is a huge challenge and which keeps companies busy for a very long time. So that is why, uh, but if you think of it, a company in Sweden or a company in Korea, they don't have that leverage, or a company in Switzerland, right? They don't have that leverage, even though uh, they don't have, their markets are not big enough. And from day one, they have to be innovative to talk to international people. In India, the first challenge that we have is we see that our internal market is big enough for us to survive, right? However, it has a flip side to it. The market, though numbers are huge, the buying capacities are less. So what happens is you build the quantity is huge, but the quality expectations, the price expectations are lower. So you kind of try to hustle your way around that. So a lot of the products that are in India, they do not appeal to international buyers in terms of their quality and other things, right? So even say, I'll give you an example. There is a very famous watchmaker in India. It's called Titan. It's owned by Tata. There's a watch called Titan. It's a huge brand. It's I think close to $2.5 billion brand, but nobody outside India knows that, right? And but it cannot compare. Even if that brand is big in India, it can in its current form, it cannot match against the Swiss manufacturer. So that's the first. The second part of that is we don't feel somehow over time, especially 200 to 50 years of not we had not only we have lost wealth to UK. That is another part. So we have lost around $45 trillion. UK over 200 years has looted $45 trillion from India. Can you put that in numbers like that? That's like in its current form. Also, it's 10 years of their current economy. And that is how much wealth has been looted. Apart from the wealth, so we most of our brand have started from scratch because the wealth wasn't there. The second part of that is a lot, and I spoke about this in my TED talk, is that a lot of identity crisis when India started post independence. There were a lot of identity crisis of who we are, where we are. The English told the world that Indians are boorish and they are uneducated. They're very primitive in the way they are. But on the contrary, our civilization, our culture, far predates Europe in by thousands of years. When Europe did not know how to live, we had very established cultures 5,000, 7,000 years back. So there was this dichotomy in people's mind where we did not know what is our identity that we should take to the world. So we were always very underinvested in who we are and saying it to the world that this is what we are. That changed in 90s and 2000s when for the first time our IT professionals, they started doing really well outside. Before that, if you see, India was always depicted, people riding elephants or, snake charmers. India was always shown as a very primitive country. So that identity crisis is the second part where uh, Indian, why we don't have Indian great global brands. The third part of that is related to wealth. Our buying capacities are low. We are around 3,000 per capita income, 3,000 USD right now. But what happens is when you move from 3,000 to 7,000 and onwards, a country changes in terms of what you expect or what you want your product to look like. You want better things in life. So what I'm hopeful now is in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years, there will be really global brands coming from India. Zach.
Well, this is an interesting part here. I wanted to, you mentioned this brand belief architecture in some of
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
content. And so,
Hmm.
most founders think branding is about logo and colors, but you
Hmm.
call it belief architecture. What is the difference and why does that matter?
Okay. So if I ask you, what are the last five things you bought? Okay. And think of why you bought them and how you bought them. In 90% of the cases, nobody would have hard sold those things to you. Okay. You would have possibly uh, either needed it, wanted it, and that brand would have come very naturally to you, and you would have made that buying decision that I need this product. Okay. Say, for example, if you need a shoe and you think of Nike, you need a laptop and you think of Apple or Microsoft. I'm just giving an example. There's nobody from Apple would have come and told you, "Hey Zach, do you need an Apple phone? No, Apple laptop, right?" So most of the buying decisions, people like to be in charge of their buying decisions. People hate being sold to. If you get a cold call, in 90% of the cases, you wouldn't even let the person on the other side finish the first sentence, right? As soon as you get a call, you keep the phone down. There are hundreds of mails coming to your inboxes every day. Have you ever responded to one marketing email that you get? Right? How, but most companies, there are some people who advise companies to build their sales strategies like that. Okay, you know this is a funnel. You start with emails. You start with you make cold calls and stuff like that. But best of the products that are sold are not sold at all. They are bought, right? Whether you look at any things that you buy, right? The things that are part of your life, you have bought them without being actively sold to. And that happens only if the belief is there that if I buy this, I'm not going to regret it. Okay. If the only reason you buy an Apple phone are a couple of things. One is that I'm not going to regret buying this. The second is, of course, the prestige and other things associated with it. Both of it are related to trust. And when the trust is there, you not only pay the price, but you pay the premium as well. Okay. If a phone costs, say, I'm very sure you would have done, we would have Apple phones don't cost that much, as much as they're sold in the market. They possibly cost somewhere around $100. They're sold upwards of $1,000. You pay for a lot of branding, marketing, and other things that Apple does, right? So if you trust a brand, you not only pay the price, you pay the premium as well, which is your own decision to do that. Okay, so companies start by saying, hey, can I get a 10% premium? Can I get a 10% margin, 15% margin? And they follow the old ways of selling to people. Say, hey, can I set up a team of 100 people? They'll call people every day. So if you start, so that's the difference. That is what I call belief-led brand architecture. If you make your buyers believe you, right, your brand will do all the selling. You don't need people actually to sell it.
It's very, really, really important. And so, what would you say is like we mentioned it in the introduction? This number one secret, or the number one most important thing when building a brand in 2026. Is it? Trust? I kind of feel like it's going to be around trust.
It can be. It is around trust, but before trust, it comes around your buyers. How well do you understand them, right? Um, Most of the cases where people don't understand the buyers that well. Okay, uh, if you think of it, say for example, I'm into beauty, or I'm in skincare, and I'm making a product, right? Just think of a, say, a 20-year-old girl who is your target customer, right? Now, that person has a lot of their her. If you look at this, like if you think of it, a 20-year-old girl who's listening to your podcast, who is a buyer of a very beautiful skincare brand, but her mind does not always think about skincare. She has her own aspirations. She has her own needs. She has her own wants. She has her own fears, right? The our mind is at work 24/7, and so if you think of a 20-year-old girl, she would be thinking a lot of things during the day, and somehow your brand needs to figure a way to talk to her, right? And when your cognitive space, your mental space is completely choked with a lot of ideas, everything starts sounding like a noise. So the first exercise that brands need to do is understand that person well, understand their needs, their desire, whether I'm selling it to a B2B or a B2C, whether to a person or an HR or a CMO. You need to understand what's bothering them today, what are their needs. And then you have to think of how my product or my service can make their lives better. And the day you solve that, the trust will be built. So, trust is an outcome of how well you understand your target buyers. Okay. So, the trust is an outcome of what I can solve for you. So, if, say, for example, if you have a flat tire and I can fix your flat tire, that is what you need, right? You don't need somebody to sell you a Michelin tire or stuff like that. So it is about how well you understand the person, the problem, their needs, and how does your product becomes part of their journey. That is the roadmap, or that's the segue to building trust.
Super, super helpful. So I'll put all your links around here on the video, but from who is listening, who should reach out to you? Who's your perfect, I guess, your avatar as well. What's the biggest problem that you solve for them? And I'll put all your links around here so everyone can get in touch.
Yes, yes. So I am more active on LinkedIn, and I'm trying to get my way around Instagram as well. But I'm more active on LinkedIn. And what I solve essentially is this. I More startups or more companies shut down because they cannot sell. And when they cannot sell, they feel that their sales processes are a problem. It is never so. Okay. If you solve the step before the sales, which is the trust, which is the belief, sales is an automatic process. Okay. So what I work with companies, I work with brands who look at their product with a lot of authenticity and sincerity of this is what we actually are. That exercise of understanding your people, their buying behavior, using psychology, then storytelling to kind of build that narrative where your product becomes a part of your customer's life. That is the exercise, that is the work that I do. And and I the most interesting part of the work that I do is through my brand consulting firm Kissa House. I especially focus on Indian companies who want to become global. Okay, I started it with a TED talk where I spoke about why there are no Indian brands, and I have one single mission with which I work is that can I create 15 global Indian consumer brands in the next 10 years? And that's the only mission that I have. That's the only goal that I'm working for. Any company which is looking to kind of get into that space, you are Indian, or in fact, if you are a regional player in any region across the world, and you think that the world is a stage for you, and you're not able to figure out how to be on that stage, we can talk.
Brilliant. It's all about education, right? And you
Yes,
can
yes.
literally save years or decades of knowledge by getting in the right room and asking the right questions with the right people. So everyone at home, if this resonates, get in touch. I'll put his links all around here. So the theme of the podcast is around the breakthrough moment, right? You've shared your breakthrough moment, and
Mm,
now is an opportunity to share. If you were to challenge the audience to have a breakthrough today, this week,
mm,
this month, what would you
mm.
suggest they do today to have that breakthrough?
Okay. So I'll break it down into two parts. Okay. So Indians who are listening to Zach's Breakthrough Moment podcast, okay, do one thing today, whereas you post one good thing about India. Okay, whether it is on Instagram or your LinkedIn. We suffer from a lack of soft power. There is a lot of global negative narrative that is built around. So if you are an Indian, you owe it to your country to post good things because there are good things all around us. That's the first. If you are a non-Indian, if you are anybody across the globe, okay, go and search about a couple of things about India, and you will realize how wonderful, how advanced this country was 5,000 years ago. Okay, you got to, and one very interesting place for you guys to start and tell you is all of us know Brian Johnson, I guess the guy who is trying to stay young through a lot of experiments. There was an Indian guy, his name was King Yayati. It's Yayati. Okay. And it's this sort of mythology mixed with some stories. He tried to do what Brian Johnson is doing today 5,000 years back. He tried to stay young by stealing, or what do you say, by injecting himself with you know the youth from his sons. That is what it is called. We talk about plasma. We talk about a lot of things. The testosterone replacement and a lot of things people do to stay young. You will be kind of fascinated by how and what Indians used to think 5,000 years back. And you will realize that no idea is there's no innovation in an idea. There's nobody who wouldn't have thought of staying young forever. There wouldn't have been a uh, you know there are no ideas that you would see. You would, of course, we had flying cars and other things 7,000 years back in Ramayana as well. But if you have to take something away from Sudhanshu's podcast, I would say go and search two things about India. There are, there's a Kailasha temple that you need to think about. You need to search about, and there's another beautiful temple which is called it is called Chennakeshwa temple in Karnataka. Okay. Or it is also called Hoyshaleshwara temple. You go search about that temple. It was built 2000 years back. Okay. I have been to a lot of places, but the kind of intricate carving on black stone that you will see, it you wouldn't have seen anything like this even in the Papal Museum or in the Louvre Museum for that matter. Okay. The kind of detailing, the kind of advancement India had 2000 years back is unparalleled. And I think a lot can be learned from that. And if I have to tell you one thing, I believe the next 20 years are going to be India's, and I'm very, very positive on it.
Amazing. I remember when I went to India for the second time,
Hmm.
I went to the Taj. Well, actually, I've been to the Taj Mahal twice, and
Hmm.
I remembered having the tour for the second time. I was a bit
Hmm.
young when I was 2 years old to remember, but yeah, they were saying that 53 or 55% of the world's GDP and trade
Yeah.
went through India with spices and
Yeah.
I guess materials and textiles and things like this. The abs was an absolute superpower with advanced, one of the best militaries on the planet, from my
Hmm.
understanding.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, what about you? What are the two things that maybe you would want people to know about India?
Oh, yeah. So the first thing is that, the one you spoke about, there's a wonderful book by William Dalrymple. Uh, mm, so 700 years back, 800 years back, in fact, even around when, even if you go 2000 years back, before Alexander came to India, India was heavily trading with Europe. Okay. Even before the Silk Route was established, even before China was exporting to Europe, India was exporting a lot of things to Europe. And uh, in fact, there was, I forgot the general's name. He said that even if we start taxing every ship from India that came to Roman quarters, they would become very, very rich. Rome was very small. India was very, very big. And you need to understand this. Alexander or any Greek person who came to India 2000 years back, they did not come to a primitive country. They came to a very advanced civilization. They came there to loot. They came there to gain from it in monetary and uh, also philosophical terms. So if you think that Alexander the Great or Greece or Macedonia was advanced 2000 years back, you need to think how advanced India would have been. And that is one thing that you need to think about. Alexander's left everything and came to India, and I think that is where he kind of took his last breath as well. But if we celebrate Alexander as Alexander the Great, I feel that India was far greater. And that is a story that people need to understand and people need to talk about. And the other part of that is uh, we have been kind of colonized for 700 and 800 years. We are, no, but we are in our hockey stick movement. Our decline is now kind of stopped, and I'm very sure that we'll get bigger, we'll get more powerful, and power for us is very different. So power for India has not invaded a single country. If you see, a lot of people invade other countries when they say that they are powerful, but we don't do that. For us, getting powerful is more sharing more knowledge. For us, getting more global is to coexist with everybody. So the Indian philosophy of there is a philosophy called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Whoever is out there should talk about it. It's called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It is the world is a family. It is when the world is suffering for war over power and other things, you don't get bigger by grabbing more power. You become bigger by making the entire country or world your family. So these are a couple of things that we can share.
Yeah, brilliant. No, I think what I'm really picking up is the importance of being proud of your country, and sharing the
Yes. Yeah.
history, sharing the highs, the lows, the reality of the country. Australia has so many amazing things about it.
Yeah.
The most incredible beaches and weather, and just a culture that's hardworking, and we have a lot of amazing things, and a lot of things
Yeah.
that you'd look at and go, oh, it's not so good too. So there's no perfect country, but I think it's
Yeah.
important to focus in on some of the high notes to really be proud of our own country. I think that's a really good point to help to
Yeah.
educate the rest of the world on, yeah, how awesome it is to be part of a certain culture. So, and as I've
Yes.
been
Yes. And I
traveling,
just
I get to share a
yeah.
little bit of Australia from time to time, but it's
Yeah.
interesting. We don't have that much. We have a culture, but it's like we have a global culture in Australia. We have so many different cultures. It's
Mhm.
different to the traditions in Mexico or India or Russia. They're very like distinct cultures. Australia
Mhm.
has its own, but it's quite meshed in with all the different cultures in the world.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, thank you
Definitely.
so
Yeah.
much for your time. I've got a page of notes. At the end of the day, it's around how do you stand out? and standing out comes with trust in business. It's probably one of the best strategies that you've mentioned today for business in many different ways. So, yeah, thank you for your time. And everybody at home, please share this podcast with everybody, anybody that you know, to help them have a breakthrough. Share your breakthrough moment in the comments and get in touch as well. So any final comments?
No, the final comment, no, the only thing that I can leave with is that, as you said, uh, trust in what you do as a person, trust in what you do as a company, trust in people that you work with. That itself is a huge, what do you say, big first step. And as I said, if you are an entrepreneur, yeah, I think while there is a lot to be, being an entrepreneur is also, people think it's quite something that they want to do. Get into entrepreneurship if even only if you are really prepared to work really hard. There is no shortcut. Entrepreneurship is the hardest way. People think it's a shortcut to get rich, but it is very, very difficult. And unless until you're prepared for that grind, uh, you know, don't be enamored. But if becoming an entrepreneur possibly could also be the best decision that you have taken if you have the right traits. So yeah, these are a couple of things, Zach.
Sure.
And as I said,
Sure.
thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I hope things that I shared is helpful for your listeners and listeners who ever have tuned in. Would love to connect with them. So you can reach me out on my LinkedIn or my Instagram. And yeah, so thank you so much,
Excellent.
Zach.
We will. Amazing. Everybody at home, we'll see you next time on the Breakthrough Moment podcast.